Welcome to part 2 in a series of screencasts from LSE Life on Discover Different Ways to Make Shorter, Smarter Revision Notes. In part 2 we're going to be looking at concise summaries. So this is what the session will cover. We're going to go back over some of the information from part 1 on why we make revision notes. Then we're going to look at concise summaries in detail, what they are and how they help. And then we're going to go through a short guide on how to create them. So remember, for this process, we're thinking about revision as an active process, a process that involves changing or reworking something in order to improve it. So we're thinking about our revision all the time as an active process. So rather than being passive and rereading or highlighting information, we're being active and we're consolidating, summarising and synthesising that information in order to more actively understand our course. We went through active revision in detail in part 1. If you can't remember what we covered or you need a refresher, pause this session now and go back to part 1 on mind maps. So let's look at concise summaries in more detail. So the mind map in part 1 was about gaining a clearer understanding of the whole topic. A concise summary reduces the information on your mind map into a neat and more usable skeleton summary of that topic. This is about reducing the mind map, not replicating it in a different form. So one way to think about this is imagine visually you were taking the information down from the size of an A3 to the size of an A4. So how do you do that? Well, we've created a template for you. If you haven't already downloaded this, you can pause this session now and download this from the LSE Life Moodle site where you found this presentation. So here's a possible layout that we suggest. You can start with a summary of the whole topic, 5 to 6 lines summarising the topic in your own words. Then you might want to follow this up with key questions. So what questions seem to be recurring when it comes to this topic? What angles have your previous exam questions taken? Or is there anything that's consistently appearing in terms of key debates around that topic? And then you might want to pull out some supporting arguments. With those supporting arguments, include only the essential information like who was the author, who was the date, and a little summary of what they said, and do the same for critiques. And then crucially at the bottom, you might want to start thinking about what your main arguments are. So after critically evaluating all of that information, creating a mind map and the summary, what do you think? What would you potentially argue in an exam? This is a suggested model. You may find that this doesn't work for you entirely, or you may find that you want to include different headings depending on the module, the subject or the topic that you're looking at. Our template is in a Word document, so you can just adjust this to work for you. But don't forget, very crucially, this is a summary that should be concise, so try to keep it to no more than 1 A4. So now it's your turn. Why not have a go creating your own concise summary? You can condense the information from the mind map you created in part 1, or if you prefer, you can skip this step and go straight to the concise summary. And ideally, if you do have someone on your course that you know that's working on the same topics, perhaps you want to buddy up with them and both create some summaries of the same topic that you can compare.